I start my day with love. Wanna start my day with love. That's what I get more of, is love. I start my day with love. Wanna start my day with love. That's what I get more of, is love. Love, love, love. Love, love, love. Love, love, love. Love, love, love.
I start my day with peace. When I start my day with peace, I feel that sweet release of peace. When I start my day with peace, I start my day with peace. I feel that sweet release of peace. Peace,
Peace, peace.
peace, peace, peace,
Peace, peace. I start my day with joy. When I start my day with joy, everything I do is infused with joy. I start my day with joy. When I start my day with joy, everything I do is infused with joy. Joy, joy, joy. Joy, joy, joy. Joy, joy, joy. Joy, joy, joy. Start my day with love. I start my day with peace. I start my day with joy, and I feel that sweet release. I start my day with love. I start my day with peace. I start my day with joy, and I feel that sweet release.
Good morning and welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Santa Rosa. And thank you to our amazing band for sharing your creativity with us. We are so blessed to have you. I'm Julie Burns, the Vice President of your board and a practitioner here. So pleased to welcome you today. So you could also ask me about serving on the Board of Trustees and how wonderful that is, because this is the time of year we start to look for potential trustees. I'm so glad to be with you today. If you are joining us for the first time, we want to extend a special welcome to you. And thank you also to our live stream viewers, wherever you are joining us from. We love you, and we're so glad that you are here. Keep in mind that you can always see what's going on here on our website, cslsr.org. We are so thankful that you have honored our safety requirements. It's because of you that we are able to offer services at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. safely, and we hope you're just as excited as we are. There are several ways that you can contribute financial support to your center. You can give online on our website. You can send us a check. And also, there will be baskets by the doors at the exits after our service today. Our organization is entirely supported by your donations. We are grateful for you. On Veterans Day, we honor the service, dedication, and valor of generations of Americans who have answered the call to serve. While we can never fully repay the debt we owe our veterans, we can honor their service by taking a moment to acknowledge and express gratitude for them. Whether attending service in person or watching online, if you are a veteran, we recognize you with appreciation for your service and ask you to please stand as you are able so that we may acknowledge you. Thank you for your service. At the Center for Spiritual Living Santa Rosa, we are motivated by a vision of a healthy, loving world. It is known as the global vision and calls us to imagine a world that works for everyone. We follow our vision through 5 core spiritual practices of our teaching. Spiritual study, to expand our minds with investigation and honest self-reflection. Affirmative prayer, which you will hear an example of from our practitioner today, our wonderful practitioner emeritus, Jennifer Mann. Meditation in all its forms to increase our awareness and experience of the divine presence. Selfless service to contribute to the greater good through action. And spiritual circulation to practice giving, receiving, asking, forgiving, and gratitude. Our giving intention season is completing today. That means we take all the pledges you have made and start planning our budget for 2022. If you have not completed your giving intention form yet, you can still do so and submit it when you are able. We use the completion date as a time to start planning and writing thank you notes. I remember Edward once told us that it doesn't matter what you plan to contribute, whether it's $1 or $1 million, it doesn't matter. We want you to participate. Something powerful happens in consciousness when we complete a giving intention form. We declare that we receive value from this community and want to contribute the flow of circulation by giving to the center. Again, whatever amount you plan to contribute in 2022, please take a moment today to let us know what that will be. And importantly, on behalf of the Board of Trustees and the staff, thank you for all your love, support, and prayers. Finally, before we have our opening prayer, there's a video from our staff sharing their appreciation for our spiritual community. Welcome.
The Center for Spiritual Living Santa Rosa came into being to be a place that says to every person who walks in our doors or who joins us online, you are welcome here.
I'm grateful for Sue and Alicia who manage the bookstore. I'm grateful for our stewards, our trustees, our giving intention team, and most of all for our congregants. Whether you're watching in person or whether you're watching from home, we feel you, we appreciate you, and we love you.
I am so grateful for the incredible welcome that this community has given me as your new assistant minister. Moving from Chicago, I'm not going to lie, it was challenging and it was scary, and the way that this community has welcomed me with open arms has really just touched my heart in such beautiful ways.
I love this community. It's a place where I can show up exactly as I am, gym clothes, fancy clothes, however I am in the moment. And I so appreciate that.
At the Center for Spiritual Living Santa Rosa, we are guided by 4 core values: spiritual living, integrity, love, and compassion.
Even though I'm a bit of an introvert, I really appreciate being in weekly contact with our congregation. There are folks here that I've known and kept up with for the last 13 years just by walking in that door every Sunday.
Ours is a community-supported organization, so I want to thank you for the support that you give to the Center for Spiritual Living Santa Rosa through your love, through your prayers, and through your financial support. Together, we are creating a world that works just a little bit better for everyone.
This is your invitation to surrender just for now and merge with the divine. The divine, what is that? It is the essence. It is a mystery. It is magical. It is the provider and the animator of all life. Each of us is a part of that. But as we get busy thinking and wondering and caring and concerning, we forget to stop. So this is the invitation to just stop for a second and open the channel to the divine. I accept that as we do so, as we arrive in the present moment, that unlimited possibilities flood our consciousness. And I know that this center, this sanctuary, this service, whether through the ethers or in person, provides impetus and inspiration to remember, to shift a little bit and accept all the good, all the unlimited possibilities that arise. So sacred is this place that we call the center. The message, the music, the community, the connection. It's all divine. So I accept that it's each of ours right now. As our hearts and minds open, I get to rest now. I get to rest in my gratitude for remembering the way it works. And then I move this prayer into the law which takes it and is so impressed that it manifests it immediately for all. And that's what I let be done. And so it is. Hello, I am Jennifer Mann, practitioner emeritus. Yes, I am. And let's take a moment and refresh ourselves. Here's a little gift of the November affirmation for all of us. I clearly see the unity of all of life. I tune my awareness to the spiritual truth of beauty and grace. My breath is the breath of spirit. And so it is.
My heart is the start of love. My heart is the start of love. When life all around feels like it's falling down, my heart is the start of love. Stronger, now I truly see. All I know for certain, the change begins in me. Begins with me. My heart is a place for peace.
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 When life all around feels like it's falling down, my for peace. Now I'm getting stronger. Now I truly see. All I know for certain, change begins with me. Begins with me. My heart is a place for peace.
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 One life all around feels like it's falling down. My heart is a place for peace. My heart is a place for peace.
My heart is a place for peace.
My heart is a place for peace.
My heart is a place for peace.
My heart is a place for peace.
All right. Let's give some more love to Mr. Christopher Fritchie and our wonderful band. And I couldn't think of a more fitting song to start off our day today, continuing our month of breathing in the view. And Dr. Edward teed this up so beautifully last week when he talked about the journey that we're on, learning how to breathe in the view. And our talk title today is Seeing Beauty, Feeling Grace. And that's such a great title because I feel like that is one of the biggest goals that we have as spiritual students in life. Being able to see beauty and feel grace, because the truth is that beauty and grace are all around us. They're always there, right? But we forget, we lose track of that. And I want to give you kind of, I'm not going to give you my whole life story because we'll be here for a week, but I want to give you a little bit of my journey, especially around a very specific spiritual practice that has truly allowed me to see beauty and to feel grace in my life. And so for much of my life, I struggled with my money. I struggled with my finances. And it's because my family, we grew up in relative poverty. And I didn't know it as a kid. You know, I think as kids, we don't really know if our parents are struggling because usually our parents are doing their best to try and hide that from us, to protect us from that because they love us. They want us to have a good life. But my parents, they were divorced around when I was 4 years old. And so my mom was the sole caregiver for me. And she spent a lot of her time and effort, getting her degree so that she could be a teacher and then she could support us after that divorce. And so we moved to rural Wisconsin so that we could be close to my grandparents on my mom's side. So I'm guessing so she could feel supported by her family. And even though our expenses weren't very high because we lived in rural Wisconsin, it wasn't super expensive to live there. Nevertheless, we really had very little because my mom was trying to build her life. And of course, she's trying to support me as a kid. And so more often than not, the lesson that I learned in those formative years of my life was that we didn't have enough, that there isn't enough to go around. I learned that from my grandparents. I learned that from my mom. I even learned that from my dad, who is a lot more well off. But that was what I learned. And it stuck with me for much of my life. And I'll get back to that in a moment, but I wanted to go into the first thing that I think is very important for all of us as spiritual students to understand, and that's that much of what we learn about life, about what's normal, what's the default of life, we learn when we're very young. And because we often don't have the spiritual tools that we teach here at the center to allow us to see an alternative, and I would argue a better perspective, we tend to embody these lessons and we start to identify with them in ways that are not good for our lives. I think it's fair to say that that phrase, not enough, is part of our default in society, don't you think? I look at the problems in the world and I think to myself, well, you know, that seems like it's rooted in that phrase, not enough. We don't have enough food to go around. We don't have enough houses to go around. There isn't enough money to go around. These are the things that we learn about in life. And that's not because they're true. The truth is we do have enough food to go around. We just need to get it to the people who need it the most. We do have enough housing to go around. We just need to get it to the people who need it the most. And we need to make it accessible for people. We do have enough money. We just need to, again, get it to the people who need it the most. Right. There is enough. It's just a matter of, is it getting to where it needs to be? But because we tend to identify and embody that phrase, not enough, we grasp at that which we have. And that's what I did when I was growing up. I began to identify with that phrase, not enough. And that's very important, because what happens when we play a belief over and over in our lives is that we can start to build our identity around it. So instead of the phrase being, there is not enough, which puts it outside of us, there's just not enough in the world. The more we start to play that, the more it becomes, I am not enough. And you see how that shifts? And so I believed that I was not enough. And because I believed that I was not enough, I spent much of my adult life chasing after more stuff. I struggled. I struggled quite a lot because I didn't know how to do anything else. And the stuff that I did have, I hung on to with a death grip. I'm reminded of one of my first apartments when I was finishing up my college years. And it was this tiny little one-bedroom apartment above a house in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Yes, it's the same Oshkosh where overalls come from. Well, they actually come from China now, but you know, the company Oshkosh Bagosh, that's where it got started. And I was living in this tiny little apartment. It's about the size of the apartment that I have here in Santa Rosa now. And you know, believe it or not, the one I have in Santa Rosa might be a little bit bigger, I don't know. But I was so stuck in that not enoughness. I was so stuck in having to hang on to my stuff and the chaos of it all that if you walked into that apartment, you would be hard pressed to not run into some piece of junk that I just had laying around. I remember my bedroom, I had my computer set up in there for, you know, playing video games, stuff like that, and doing homework, and my futon, because of course college students all live on futons. I don't know if you knew that. That's the truth. And I couldn't see my floor. There's just so much stuff on it. I don't even remember what that stuff was. I just remember that it was a disaster. And that's how I was living my life, because my inner not enough was showing up as an outer not enough. It was showing up as me kind of hoarding stuff that I didn't need because I didn't know how to let go of it. In fact, I was a little afraid to do anything else. And what's worse is that I was not a generous person. I really wasn't. I didn't know how to be a generous person because I felt like I didn't have enough money to be generous. I didn't have enough time to be generous with my time. At the root of all of that was the fact that I simply was not open-hearted. And what's interesting and maybe a little bit ironic is that despite all of that grasping, all of that attachment that I was doing with the stuff that I had and the stuff that I thought that I wanted, I actually found myself very much in debt, financial debt, by the time I hit my 30s. You would think, oh, if I just grasp more and more and more, I'm not going to be in debt, right? No, that's not how it worked for me. I had so much debt by the time I got to my 30s. And the reason for that is that my not enough mentality, that identity that I had been building around my entire life of not being enough, well, I was finding a way to make it happen in the reality around me. That not enough extended very far beyond my finances. I was really lonely because I didn't know how to cultivate deep friendships that weren't transactional. Again, because I didn't believe that I was enough. I wasn't worthy of good friendships. I wasn't worthy of good relationships. I stifled my creativity, which was really sucky because I am a super creative person and I love creating things. I love playing music. I love art. I love building things. And yet I didn't do any of those things because it felt too risky. Again, my life was informed by that phrase, I am not enough. And so I was playing it safe. I remember when I was in high school even, that identity of not being enough had become so large for me. It had impacted me so much that, and I loved science, and I still love science. I love science so much. And I went into, I think, my senior year science class, and I had the option to choose like a really advanced and really cool science class because they give us, options to choose which classes we want. And you know what I did? I chose the most remedial science class that I could because I knew I would get an A in it. I didn't want to be challenged. It didn't feel safe. It felt frightening because that not enough had become my mantra. And in back of all of this, really the thing that was starting to come forth from this, what I would argue is a very broken belief, is that I could only see the problems and the ugliness in the world. And I felt like life was so unfair. I really felt like it was unfair. So I don't want to stay in like that depressing rabbit hole for this entire talk here. So let me talk about how I managed to find my way out of that. And that started with a number of practices, but the most powerful practice that really started to shift this for me was my practice of giving. And this began when I started my time at the Bodhi Spiritual Center in Chicago, and this was back, I think, right around when I was turning 30, if memory serves. So about 10 years ago, and I took classes there like so many of us do when we find our way into a new thought center. We start taking classes and we start learning and we listen to the talks. We come on Sunday and we grow. And so I thought to myself, all right, well, I always felt really awkward when that basket would come around in the Sunday service, and I just sort of begrudgingly put my $20 bill in it. And that started to shift after I learned more about our spiritual principles, one of them being that we live in a reciprocal universe. We live in a universe that gives back to us that which we put into it with our consciousness. And the more I learned that, the more I started to shift my giving practice from feeling like it's sort of obligated for me to do that to something where I really began to enjoy it. And I managed to get into a practice of feeling like, how can I feel really grateful for the gift that I'm giving here today? How can I feel joyful in this? And so I began that practice, and I began a committed practice, very similar to the committed giving practice that we have here at the center in Santa Rosa. I began this practice, and I started to challenge myself with it a little bit. And I still started off in a way where I didn't feel like I was, going to be eating ramen for the entire month that I was doing it, but I pushed myself just a little bit more. And something really fascinating happened. I started to notice that I was not as worried about my money. This is really weird. You would think if you have less money that you would be worried about it more. But the opposite happened for me, which is really fascinating when I look back on it now, that the more that I gave, the less I was worried about making my bills, because one of the really amazing things that came out of this practice when I started it is like, well, I better put together a budget for myself so I know what's going on and I can pay off my bills, because I still had all of these credit card bills that I had to pay. And what's even more interesting as time progressed, and it didn't happen all at once, I want to be clear, there's no magical thinking here. This isn't something where like I was just magically gifted this. But I saw my income and my job increase. In fact, from the beginning of my practice to when I decided to move out here to Santa Rosa to take this job, I actually saw my income double even though I was giving in a committed giving practice. And that's not because there's like some magic that was happening here, but really what I know was happening now that I look back on it is I was chiseling away at that wall that I had built around my heart that was labeled not enough. Every single time that I gave was another, chisel against that brick wall that I had built around my heart. And because I started to believe that I am enough, I actually was able to advocate for myself. I was able to say, hey, you know what? I'm doing really good work here, and I really enjoy doing this work. And I am worthy of a pay raise. I am worthy of that. And, it's really fascinating. Like, there was a point where, before I did this work, the idea of me asking for a raise, boy, I would be like, oh, I'm going to ask for this, and then they're going to fire me. That's what was going through my mind. Yeah, I hear laughter because I think we've all been there, right? We've all been like, oh, I can't ask for that. They're going to fire me. I'm going to lose my job. That's where my mind went. I am going to lose my job. But the more I did this practice, the more I saw that my good was less rooted in money itself and more in something intrinsic within me. That I had value beyond what my net worth might be. And so I advocated for myself, and I was able to learn how to be in leadership. I went into management in information technology. I grew, and I saw more and more opportunities. And I know that all of that was because I was able to let go of my grasping around my finances. And I don't want to discount how hard this was. This was hard. This was very hard for me, especially because I had sort of ingrained in me this one experience that I had around 2008. I had just started a new job at a company doing information technology work there, and it was like my first really big information technology job. And I got laid off a month after because that was the year when the entire economy crashed. And I didn't know what to do. I was like, it had never happened to me before. And luckily, a month later, I got rehired by them because they had an issue with another employee, so there was an opening. But that fear stuck with me quite a bit. And it was all rooted in that not enough. Of course, when you get laid off from a job, what goes through your mind? I am not enough. Why don't they like me? Why don't they want my work? So the more I was in my giving practice, the more I started to have experiences that reflected my enoughness, both in my finances, but also in my life overall. I was grasping less at stuff and spending more time building relationships, spending more time doing my own work, spending more time finding ways to live that love that was more and more finding a way to come through my heart. I had chiseled away that wall around my heart just enough for some of that love to start to come through, some of that creativity to start to come through. And I took more classes. I went into practitioner training. And in 2016, and this was even in the midst of me giving approximately 10% of my gross income, and please don't get hung up on that number, by the way, that's what was good for me. I was actually able to buy a house in Chicago. Not an apartment, not a condo, not a townhome, but an actual 2-story house with a basement on a corner lot in a good neighborhood. And I mean, to be fair, that house had some issues, y'all. It was built in 1890, and I'm surprised that the roof wasn't falling in, but it was mine. It was my house. And I did that even though I was giving so much. And I wouldn't say even though, I would say because. Because I was giving so much, I was actually open to that opportunity. And even better, so it doesn't stop there, that very, say like span of 2 months when I was working on buying that house and I was in my committed giving practice, I had my minister at the time reached out to me and asked me if I had heard about the Center for Spiritual Living Regeneration Program, which is the program, I don't know if it's still running, but it was running then, that is basically a grant that allows those who are 35 and under to pursue ministerial training at the Holmes Institute, which is our accredited teaching body in the movement. That all happened at the same time. And so I bought a new house, and now here I am going off into minister school. And again, I don't want to make it seem like there was something really like magical that was happening here. I don't know what was happening metaphysically, if there is anything going on here. But I do know that if I had not been in my committed giving practice, my heart would not have been as open as it was to actually be open to those opportunities before me. I might not have been open to that house because that house was totally different than what I thought that I wanted when I started looking. Totally different. I had no idea. And the instant I walked into it, I'm like, nope, this is it. I had no idea. And the same with ministerial school. I had just finished up my practitioner oral panels, and I thought to myself, oh, I'm just going to do like a practitioner thing for a few years. I'm going to build up like a practitioner business. I love seeing clients. You know, I was going to do that. And of course, here comes Spirit knocking on my door saying, hey, have you considered being a minister? Let's make it really easy for you. You don't have to pay anything. I'm like, really? Okay. But if I had been closed-hearted, if I had allowed that brick wall to surround my heart, if I hadn't been in my giving practice, not just of my finances, but at that point, giving of myself because I was volunteering a lot at the center too, I don't know if I would have said yes to it. And so that brings me to the juice of this spiritual practice for me. And that is the practice of letting go. And this is a very Buddhist practice of letting go of our attachments. And for me, it's become the core of my giving practice because what it does is it leads me to be more open-hearted. And that improves everything in my life. Up until this year, I still had some debts. You know, when you've got a house that was built in 1890, like I said, there are a lot of things to fix in that house. And sometimes I had to take out some loans to fix some stuff. And this is actually kind of the problem that I had then, and I'll get to the reason why, but none of those debts actually felt burdensome because Chicago Public Schools was paying me a lot of money at that point. And so it took a little bit for me to realize that I actually still had work to do around my giving. I had work to do around my grasping. Because what that realization was that I was attached to that job at Chicago Public Schools. I was attached to the income that it was giving me. And my ego was a little bit attached to being like the guy that everybody would come to when there was some crazy, horrific problem that we had to solve in less than 30 days. You know, my ego loved that. It's like, oh, I'm important to you? Yes, I am happy to help with this. I was super attached to that. But when I finished ministerial school and I did my oral panels, there's something that shifted in that. It's almost like some of those final bricks around my heart got chiseled away. And I recognized that there was something more that was calling me than just a really huge income. So when Dr. Edward offered me this position as your assistant minister, I believe that if I had not done my giving practice, if I had not worked on becoming more open-hearted, I don't know if I would have accepted. Because in my mind, I would be thinking, well, I'm going to be making less money, so no. But because I had done that work, I was open to it. I was open to coming out here and living a completely different life. Like, it's totally different. And my giving practice really paved that way for me to be open to that change because it took away my grasping around money. And the good news is that as part of moving out here, I sold my house. And any of the realtors in the room or anybody who's sold a house recently knows the market's pretty darn good for selling right now. Not so good for buying if you're on that end of the spectrum. But I was able to sell it. And by the time I sold it on the market over the span of 5 years, the value of my house had gone up over $100,000, which is pretty amazing. And so I got a large profit from the selling of that house. And you can probably see where this is going. I got a big profit from selling that house, paid off all of my debts. For the first time since, I was old enough to apply for a credit card, I found myself to be debt-free, which is a really fantastic feeling. And I still had profit left over so I could invest it into my future and let that money just sit there and make money for me. So that was not something that I expected, but I say that was a possibility. I was open to that possibility because I was in that practice of letting go, that practice of giving. And it even extended to my move because trying to fit a 2-story plus a basement house into a 1-bedroom Santa Rosa apartment is not something that is possible. I don't care how good your spiritual mind treatment is, how good your meditation is, unless you can make it like a Doctor Who TARDIS, and I'm gonna say that out there for all of the nerds out there who get that reference. There's no way. And I loved to give away all of the stuff that I had accumulated in that house because it felt so freeing, like I'm not being tied down by all of these things anymore. And moreover, I got to experience the joy of the people who received those things that I was giving. Whether I was selling it for a severe discount or just outright giving stuff away, seeing the joy on everyone's face when they got to receive what they didn't think they were going to be able to receive, that was really, really powerful for me. And at the end of the day, I realized through this practice that I'm now able to better see that beauty in the world and to feel the grace, which I define as the self-giving nature of this universe. I was able to experience both of those because I had opened my heart through this practice. And that ability continues to allow me to better see and be open to all of the possibilities around me, which I don't know if you know, but when you go into ministry, your job is kind of to see the possibilities. At least in our movement, that's what I believe, that part of my job is to see those possibilities and to find a way to communicate them. And so I want to close with this quote from Khalil Gibran, who said, "You give but little when you give of your possessions. It is when you give of yourself that you truly give." My journey's been a pretty twisty one, with lots of mistakes and many lessons and a fair bit of growth. But what I've realized is that the giving of my possessions has opened the door for me to give of my heart. And I think that's what the world needs more of, don't you? For us to give of our hearts. So let's take that into some prayer. If it feels comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes. And how good it is to be in that divine presence, the presence of the infinite, the one and the many. This divine thing that is abundance, that is joy, that is life itself. I know that I am one with it, just as each and every beautiful person in our center, in person and online, we are all one. We are one with this abundance, with this life, with this joy, with this good. We are one with beauty and with grace. And it is that beauty and that grace that I invite to find its way forward in our hearts today, knowing that as it was true of me chiseling away the barriers around my heart, so too do I know that that unconditional love, that loving presence of the divine is chiseling away at each and every of our hearts here today, allowing us all to be more free, to be more joyful, to be more loving, to be open-hearted. It's that open-heartedness that I see is just this beautiful spark of light that is growing and growing and growing for each and every one of us. I know that we are absolutely divinely served by this, and that each and every day it is a little bit easier for us to be in that atmosphere of giving of ourselves. And so I am just so grateful for this, so grateful for the fulfillment of this prayer, and so grateful for our collective open-heartedness. And with my gratitude, I release this word into the action of the law that has already said, "Yes, my beloveds, yes." And together we say, "And so it is." All right, so this is the point in our service, as Dr. Edward has been saying for the past 2 weeks, that we traditionally would have our offering, but because it's not safe yet for us to pass our baskets, Dr. Edward and Christopher and I are working on a way to bring a meaningful experience, because as I talked about in my talk, the practice of giving is incredibly powerful. And so, as sort of a substitute for this right now, I'll invite you again to close your eyes if that feels comfortable, and place your hands on your heart. And in your mind's eye, call back a memory of something that happened in the past week for which you are truly, truly grateful. Allow that gratitude to fill you up. Imagine that there is this flow of unconditional love that is amplifying that gratitude. And it is growing and growing and growing until you simply cannot contain it any longer. And it's that gratitude that no matter how you choose to give, that I ask you to bring into your intention for whatever your gift is. Let that gratitude be the fuel that rides along with it. Let's take a deep breath. Breathe out. And when you feel ready, go ahead and open your eyes. So thank you for playing with me on that today. Now is our time to learn about what is going on in our community from our wonderful trustee, Julie Burns. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Reverend Russ, for that inspiring and open-hearted talk. Let's give him another round of applause. Well, hello again. So it's almost Thanksgiving, and our Thanksgiving Eve service is happening on November 23rd at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. We are offering this service both in person and live-streamed online. Now, and this is very important, because we need to ensure our sanctuary remains a safe place, we have a limited number of in-person seats available. In order to secure a seat for yourself and your family, you will need to sign up on our website, cslsr.org. Please note also that since we have a limited number of seats, we will need you to fill out a form for each family member who will be attending, including children. We really look forward to seeing you on Thanksgiving Eve. It's going to be a wonderful service. Our Being and Belonging group meets today from 1:30 to 3 p.m. Pacific Time. You can join us on Zoom as we explore the ways in which our deep beingness informs our sense of belonging and how we bring this awareness into the world as a radical act of social change. Today's conversation will center around systemic racism and the spiritual principles we can nurture to bring about healing. Are you an artist and a member of the center? We would love to display some of your work as part of our Art at the Center program. Approximately every 2 months, we feature the work of a different artist in the social hall, as you can see the beautiful quilts that we have up right now. If you're interested, please contact Bob Hart at rihart9@gmail.com and include some pictures of your work. Please write artist in the subject line. We have an easy way for you to support the community and make use of the little soaps, shampoos, lotions that you get from hotels. Hopefully, now that we're starting to travel a bit, we have a few of those. We are collecting these items for distribution during the holiday season to those living with mental illness. Please also consider donating deodorant, razors, toothpaste, toothbrushes, and regular-sized bars of soap. You can place your donations in the plastic box near the entrance to the social hall during the whole month of November. Thank you so much for your participation. And finally, our monthly board meeting is early this month due to Thanksgiving. It is this Thursday, November 18th at 5:30 p.m. on Zoom. And as one of your trustees, I can tell you that our meetings are wonderful. Guests watch the meeting like they're watching a riveting documentary. You aren't seen online, but you can type questions into the chat. It's a great way to see how your elected leadership handles the business of your center. We would love to have you join us for our next public session, and you can find the Zoom link on our website. Thank you so much for being here. We love you. Have a wonderful week.
Hello, I'm Claire Victor, a practitioner emeritus here at the center, and I'd like to invite you to a special afternoon of sound healing, meditation, and prayer. I'll be using my Tibetan bowls and crystal sound bowls and other evocative instruments to drop us into a sacred space and then moving into affirmative prayer for self-healing and self-nurturing during this busy time where we start to approach these holidays. So I hope that you will be able to join us, and I look forward to seeing you there very much. Thank you.
All right, let's close this thing out, shall we? And before we close this thing out, I do want to make a special invitation for each of you to consider our after-service prayer. I know, especially for me, if I'm not feeling open-hearted if life is just pressing down on me, one of the things that's really helpful for me is going to my practitioner or minister and just praying with them and receiving that prayer. And it helps me to find my way back to open-heartedness. So you can find that on our website. We have a Zoom link for that you can take advantage of. And that's immediately after this service and also after the 11 a.m. service as well. So please consider doing that. All right, so know with me that you are never alone, that Spirit is exactly where you are, that you have only to look within at any moment to know that you are guided, sustained, and empowered by a presence that expresses itself as you in this world. In deepest gratitude, let us live our lives accordingly, so that in everything that we do, say, and think, we honor this presence within. And so it is. Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful faces with us today. Enjoy the closing music and have a wonderful week.